To Be an African Husband by Jawara. I think that's how it's pronounced. Jawara. Because Wara. Oh, wait. Jawara Sekou? Okay. This country. And please excuse me if I mispronounced it. But I know it's Sekou. Okay. This country will let a black man grow up, but it will not let him mature. Malcolm X. The African husband represents one half of the complementary building blocks on which the African world is built. Any effort to strengthen our people, therefore, must seek to revitalize the essence of both the female and male halves of this unit. History tells us that the role of the African husband within a society or culture was a vital part of the stability. Husband within a society or culture was a vital part of the stability of the family. Aziza, my wife, has frequently noted that the state of our relationships reflects the state of the African world. And then think about that in relation to like the diaspora wars and the ways in which like xenophobia will be used against black immigrants or African immigrants, or like the anti-black rhetoric, like all these things. Because what does it mean? What would the world look like if we removed the shackles of American slavery and racism and xenophobia and all these obvious phobias, whatever, and black people came all together and was like, hold up, why are we fighting each other when the problem is you? You know what I mean? In terms of whatever the oppressive institution and whatever. I didn't say it. By extension, the quality of and potential to improve our existence on the planet is dependent on strengthening our relationships. The purpose of our bondage was to create wealth and comfort for a few, and not for us to be good husbands to our mates, or co-creators or providers of stability and cohesion for the African world. The fact that we are still here advocating on behalf of African people is indeed a modern-day miracle. Clearly, the particular responsibility of men in this important function has become confused. Some of the confusion about our importance comes from the feeling. Some of the confusion about our importance comes from feeling insignificant and its companion, hopelessness. Compounding this is a targeted media saturating us with genital focus, shallow frivolity. Therefore, serious thought about the development of an African husband must involve a consideration of the particular historical circumstance of our people and a reconsideration of the importance of the African man within the family and marriage relationships. Nurturing relationships, like being African in the anti-African environment in which we live, present us with great challenges. We tend to bring up our inherited familiar patterns to our relationships. We tend to bring our inherited familiar patterns into our relationships and frequently hold onto these same patterns even in the face of their limited effectiveness. That's where we get into self-sabotage, women too, because me included, and I'm working on it. But I realized that I was self-sabotaging, like even for myself, when I like actually liked this man, and I was like, I have trauma to work through, and I have some unresolved stuff to work through because I'm acting real emotionally immature. But I'm nervous, and you're making me nervous, you know what I mean? Because I actually like this man. I was like, first of all, how'd you get me to like you? And he was just being himself, girl. I was like, shit. And then I continued to self-sabotage because I actually liked him, and I was like, nervous. Because, like, when you, like, actually, like a man and you're like, oh. Like, I liked his hugs and shit. Like, I was like, oh, I want you to give me a hug. I want you in my space. And I self-sabotaged. You know what I mean? And it's like when you find... let me not get into my problems. Excuse me. This is something for the journal. But I am blocked. Yes, unfortunately. I'm laughing at myself, but it's sad. It sucks. But it was a good learning experience. I mean, it has to be a learning experience. Instead of like being like all Debbie Downer about it, I take it as like, okay, take it on the chin, get up. What did we learn? Right. The process of growing and developing within a relationship often requires great humility as well as sensitivity, flexibility, and faith. We all need an assurance that who and what we bring to the relationship will be enhanced, enlivened, and significantly transformed inside of of the process. Let's be real. One of the greatest challenges to a successful marriage is past hurtful experiences, which get in the way of honesty and truthfulness in communication. Damn, you calling me out. Shit. If we are to be good husbands to our mates, we must be secure enough to have open and honest discussion about our needs and expectations. We may be consistently bringing home oranges, assuming this is what our wives want, only to find out they want mangoes. We can't assume. We must ask. To do this, we must be able to get past our own egos. This is the challenge for brothers. We don't want to look bad. Brothers don't like to be questioned. We are often masking our sensitivity. And you know what? I just saw this video from the what's her name? She's a psychologist. Oh, I can't remember her name right now. But she was like, if you want to be able to talk to men about their feelings, if you want men to be emotionally open with you, all this stuff, you need to stop calling them sassy for doing so. And I was like, wake it up, wake it up. Calling black men sassy contributes to the demasculinization when they're like expressing their feelings specifically. And I'm very grateful myself that I have not contributed to that conversation of sassiness, because I kind of recognize the like demasculinization within that because of one, homophobia. Black women, I mean shit, right? But also like the way that sassy is correlated to, you know what I mean, womanhood. And then right, and it's like, girl, we can't be doing that, we can't do that, right? But that was, I didn't want to, I was gonna make a TikTok video about it, but I was like, no. But it's gonna, girl, so I, anyways. But it was an interesting conversation to see being had on in terms of TikTok and the different videos that I've encountered about it. I like sensitive men. Me personally, I'm like, me too. I'm sensitive. I cry a lot, so. But think about that. The emotional repression that leads to anger, or suppression that may lead to anger and violence, because black men have not been, or men in general, have not been allowed to express their full emotionalities. Oh, because they're sassy. And there's like a bigger, broader conversation to be had about that I don't feel like I have the capabilities to fully to fully discuss or articulate, because obviously I'm not a man. So I like to listen, especially in conversations like this. Like there's this one TikToker, the breakup advocate, and he kind of touches on this. And there's another one. He's like Dev the Wizard or something like that. I can't remember his name. But he also talks about it, and I really like listening to differing perspectives or understanding differing perspectives, because it's like, oh wow, I never really thought about that. We don't want to look bad. Brothers don't want to be questioned. We are often masking our sensitivity, and we don't want to step on our mate's toes. Furthermore, getting to the truth of deep issues takes time, focus, and courage. It is necessary for African husbands to plan for peaceful time with their wives away from their children in order to do this work. Another serious impediment to being a good African husband or wife is that we often buy into the unrealistic imagery of romantic love. From an African-centered perspective, this is a fanfictual mirage, making the marriage relationship appear to be effortless as long as we have the right person. Nothing could be further from the truth. An African marriage requires great personal investment. Real love is based on a committed relationship. African marriages should be ultimately focused on the children. The health of our children requires a healthy marriage relationship between their parents, who must be the partners in this great enterprise. Relationships based on the fleeting falsity of romance don't last. Marriage relationships demand work. To be an African husband, an African man must be prepared to work at it. He must be inspired by the possibility of African wholeness. An African man who wants to be a good husband must have a lot of humility and he must be prepared to work on his own growth and development. This is often the greatest challenge of all, an absence of knowledge or past experience. We need institutions in which African male elders can share their experiences, both negative and positive, with younger African men. An African husband with a spiritual grounding can understand the marriage relationship process as a path to greater strength, happiness, and health for the African world. The process will hopefully allow the husband to become one who is mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually accessible, becoming a channel through which the ancestors can provide guidance, answers, sustenance, and wisdom. To be an African husband is to exhibit kindness, courteousness, and gentleness when interacting with his wife and family. Establishing this kind of environment in the home allows for openness and dependability as a foundation for all relationships within it. In this way, we also create an environment that fosters the growth and maturity of our mates. As an African man/husband, I take the position that supporting and encouraging my wife is a sacred responsibility that is critical for my health, for the health of our family, and the health of the African world. To be an African husband is to be an advocate for the African family. We must project kindness as well as firmness. As we inspire and provide direction and accountability within the family, ours is the call to teach by example, while we retain the openness to learn and grow. Because of the love of and reverence for our elders and our ancestors, we understand that our relationships are our bedrock. We represent the African continuum in these relationships as we commit to uh, constantly learning. Ah, huh. These relationships as we commit to constantly learn in order to improve the lives of the African living and unborn. Girl, anyways, I'm so ready for this like skin thing to be off my face. You have no idea. Our actions cannot be based on a romanticized notion of a glorious past that does not honestly face the realities of our present. We must be clear that many obstacles exist and more are being formulated daily to prevent us from having strong, stable bonds. This is true as it relates to all of our relationships, but most assuredly in the male/female procreative process that ensures the survival of any people. If we have any doubts, witness the correct if we have any doubts, witness the crass and amoral commodification of our women on any music video on any day. Tomorrow's African men have to be imbued with alternative notions of themselves and taught to actively fight the process of being psychologically manipulated and becoming unwitting slaves of another kind. I was about to pull out another book, but I won't. Clearly, this process requires a very rigorous, protracted, preventative, and reparative process, guided by a vision of African people becoming what we should and must be. Because these types of men are not made by accident, the community must invest in long life rites of transformation to bring order to the development of our men as well as our women and our children. Without these communal rites, we will not be able to nurture whole African men, and therefore we will not have successful African husbands. A closing word on trust and African families. It may be that no other issue impacts the total experience of Africans on the planet as does the need for trust. The quality of all of our relationships, but perhaps most importantly, the relationship with our mates rests on and is developed by trust. Our ability as individuals to trust one another is reflective of the state of our internal space, which depends on our state of spiritual balance and well-being. African men have to acknowledge this and all of the historical precedents that have caused many of us to be untrustworthy, as well as the particular experiences of our own histories that have made it difficult for us to trust our women. This aspect of our underdevelopment should not be underestimated because of the lack of trust that we have for ourselves will inevitably become a part of any relationship which we attempt to form. If the ability to trust is not repaired, we can predict that it will certainly cause the demise of our marriage/relationships. Human sexuality is a real and powerful force. I will bring out a book for that one. Maybe two. Ah. Okay, this is the first one. Big Purr. This is the second one. Big Purr. We will have a discussion about them later in another time. Not right now. But girl. Our confusion and exploitation has caused many of us to use sexuality as an outlet and as an excuse for not dealing with self and our mates honestly. The damage that this has caused is immeasurable. African men have an obligation to become trustworthy through whatever reparative process that is necessary. In reality, it may be one thing that our wives and people need most. To be an African husband is challenging in an anti-African environment, but speaking personally, it is a part of my fulfillment as an African man committed to the liberation and healing of my people. Big purr. Okay. And then the next one will be To Be an African Professional by Esmeralda Simmons, Esquire. Bye, y'all. Thanks for listening.